What floor he's from? Why is this?
Board meeting. If you want to participate in the opening prayer and the pledge of allegiance, please stand. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and glory forever. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Debbie, you want to go with roll call?
Mr. Allen,
Here.
Mr. Belsky,
Here.
Mr. Davy,
Here.
Mr. Jordan,
Here.
Mr. McKeskey's absence is health related. Mrs. Murray. Here. Mr. Pence.
Here.
Mr. Runsberg.
Here.
Ms. Foggy. Here. 8 members present, 1 absent.
Thank you, David. I need a motion to approve the agenda, and we're going to add item PM 3724 and PM 3524. So the motion, read to you. Are you doing?
We need to the second.
Oh, okay.
Amy needs to.
So we have an addendum to tonight's agenda under personnel negotiations. We would like the addition of PN 3724, that the following individual be approved to volunteer his services within the district as all necessary clearance documents with no violations noted or on file in my office and in the personnel office. Be the addition of Chad Cordick, who is our middle school assistant principal, former golf coach, to our varsity golf program. He no longer is able to coach due to his administrative duties, but he would like to volunteer to support the team. They have their first golf match Thursday, so we wanted to make sure. I'm looking at our athletic director back there who's verifying Thursday is when our first golf event is. So obviously with the timeliness, we wanted to add that. And then PN 4524, that Kelly Beckler, the fatherhood and data specialist for the teen parenting program, received a salary of $32,960 and 5 prorated vacation days funded by our ELECT grant, effective for the 24-25 school year. Kelly is new to the program, and so she was missed on the original agenda. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed her as critical personnel to the teen parenting program, along with the other 2 individuals who already landed on the agenda. It was just an oversight on our part. So we want to handle that as a full group over there at the high school. Thanks, Mr. Pence.
Well, thank you. Now, I guess we're going to go to, we have a couple of presentations.
Well, actually, we have one. Yes. Okay. Coming in for a presentation will be Tremco Roofing. We are asking the board to consider utilizing their services for 2 repairs at Johnson High School in the E-wing section and also in the auditorium, Cochran Auditorium section. And then we're also asking that you consider purchasing a preventative maintenance contract so that those individuals can constantly monitor, survey with some, I guess, pretty snazzy tools they have, right, Mr. Hasselbauer, that can troubleshoot any problems for us before they occur. They wanted to come in and present to you this evening, so they're on their way in, the folks from Tremco. So welcome, Tremco.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Corporate. How are you?
Sure,
Okay.
if that's comfortable for you.
Yeah, that's fine. I have a presentation.
All right, we're gonna go on this short throw over here. So the board is used to that. They'll just kind of scoot around so that you can present on the wall. Thanks, folks.
Oh, is it easier to do flash drive? It's plug this in, all you have to do is press the button. Okay. Yeah, ready to share.
When you're done, can
Was there a
you
good or a bad place to
send
stay?
Brian House a book or hard copy?
Probably not.
Okay.
So just wherever you're most comfortable, move around. You'll have your back to people.
And just click the
Then you'll
dot.
turn around, you'll have your back to us. It's just, we don't have a great angle here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
so.
Yes, my name is Justin Snyder, S-N-Y, D-R. Tremco, T-R-E-M-C-O.
I'm sorry. Oh, my name is Justin Snyder. Oh, I have that.
Okay.
Oh,
His name is Y-L, W-E-I-N-L-L. W-E-I-N-L-L.
So you have it right out of
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
Another
Yeah.
name.
I'm gonna get out of the way.
I started trying to go and log in. So, told these folks, my name is Justin Snyder, my colleague Adam and I work in roofing and building maintenance. So just at a high level, and at any point, if anybody has any questions, by all means, just stop. We will talk roofing and some roofing related things. So as far as the language, if there's anything you don't understand or would like further explanation, please just ask. We talk roofs every day for all intents and purposes. We assume anyway that you do not. So again, if there's something that you would like clarification on, please just ask. So Tremco itself, we're a consulting material manufacturer. We do have a service leg and we can self-perform, but we are not a roofing contractor. So we're very different from roofing contractors in a traditional mindset, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we had connected with Mr. Mattis, the Director of Plant Operations with the school district and his team. And we came out initially to assess the high school building. So what we originally did when we came out was kind of take an initial look at the overall condition of the high school and do like a brief visual assessment, start to put some information together that kind of addresses and tells the tale of where this roof is at in its life cycle. Okay. Just from a Tremco standpoint, just so everybody's aware, we are not new. Tremco's been around since 1928. Tremco is not only all across the state of Pennsylvania, but we are also all over the country, even internationally. Specific to the state of Pennsylvania, we have done roofing projects in every county. Specifically to the K-12 school districts, we have worked with over 350 out of 501 public school districts in the state on roofing and building envelope projects. So we're not new to this. Some local references, as you guys look at this list, if there's anyone that jumps out that you just want to know, like, hey, what did you do there? Just ask. But just a few super local. Last year, the War Memorial Building. So if you would have noticed, if you're in town and you saw that the roof got done on it last year, it was us. Okay, that's our project. Thoughts or questions on any of the other districts anybody sees?
Yeah, the Great Johnstown Grid, did you guys work with Ted on that?
We did work with 10, yeah, they were the architect, I believe, and
Yeah.
we went through them.
They're the ESCO.
Yes, yeah. For us, as a consulting manufacturer, what ends up happening in a lot of situations where an architect or engineer is involved, we do roofs every day. Roofs are part of what they do. In many situations, they actually come to us when it comes to specifics. So design details. Anytime you look at a roof warranty, for example, on a commercial, so a low slope, a flat roof, architects and engineers are going to put in their specification per the manufacturer's standards, right? So whatever you need to do per the manufacturer to get the warranty, that's what they recommend. That's why they come to us, because we're the person with the warranty at the end of the day, right? So that's that relationship. So yes, a 10. Any other ones? Thoughts? What we do, again, I said briefly that we're very different from a roofing contractor. This is on the left, it says traditional approach. Typically in a roof, let's just say this building, you put a roof on, it kind of runs its life cycle. As it ages, you start to get some issues, some leaks, things like that. So the traditional mindset is you make repairs, and then ultimately you get tired of making repairs and you replace the roof. What we do is very different. That's the thing on the right. It's a lot more involved. Inspection and analysis. That's what we did initially at the high school. Okay, so we did that. As part of that, we made some repairs and things like that. And we actually found that restoration for that roof is an option and not necessarily the replacement thing yet. So we kind of paint the picture a little bit different to try to work with you to put you in the best solution. So it's not always that you have to replace the roof, right? It's kind of the high level look at kind of where we're at when we continue down the road of your roof. This sort of methodology is what we use on, I assume everybody's familiar with a CAD drawing, right? Sort of that one-dimensional aerial overlook of the building. So we sort of categorize things in certain ways to help everybody understand. In our professional opinion, you know, the red roof section is one that you need to replace immediately. That's kind of like the biggest need, right? And then obviously the key on the left correlates to the things that you're seeing on the map. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the very minimum, which is kind of where we're at because we have not like truly got in there and try to break it out more. The basis is this red light kind of idea where we look at roofs at a high level, and green roofs are good roofs. Sort of the amber or yellow roofs are sort of in the middle, is like a marginal, and then red is bad. Okay, so that's kind of the basis of how we look at things. And then this allows us to kind of set up a plan, right? So when we look at good roofs, the idea is, hey, they're good. We can do things kind of minimalistically, like visual inspections, minimal repair work, things like that that kind of prolong and extend the life of that roof. The roofs in the yellow are ones that are like, hey, we're sort of at the end of life cycle. We're starting to see some things that kind of say, hey, we need to get on this thing, kind of not lose it. And then the red roofs are the ones that are like, hey, this thing's seen better days. We need to take a look at, you know, a different long-term solution. So that's kind of what we did.
Drawing.
Yeah, just the drawing. If you go back real quick, Adam, what we did initially when we worked with Tom and Brian, so you can see, were A, kind of high-level picture overlook, but B, sort of start to assess and evaluate some of the higher needs that are going on at the building. Roof number 22, sort of down here on the right, assuming you can see. That's going to be an important one. And then over here, roof 1 is the auditorium. It's going to be number 7 and number 3. They're sort of on either side of the auditorium, or kind of where our focus goes initially. Go ahead. That visual assessment kind of paints the picture. Things that we do know, the roofs were installed, and somebody, correct me if I'm wrong, the renovation was like 2003-ish with the addition, and everything was done. So all the roofs at the high school are over 20 years old. They're no longer under warranty, so they're out of warranty. So for example, if you have a leak or an issue, it's solely out of pocket, you own it, there's no coverage, right? It's kind of where you're at. However, the roofs are fair. They're not in terrible condition overall. They're still performing as intended, but you are starting to see some signs of age and sort of to be expected type conditions. Just a couple pictures. I mean, we have a bunch. I don't think Tom's here, is he? Okay. Les has them. I know we had sent sort of some of that visual inspection stuff. I'm not sure if it made it to you, but if you need additional copies or would like to see more, we're obviously happy with that. pass along. But again, sort of high level, some of the things we're seeing, things are starting to peel, open up, things like that. What you have up there is an EPDM or a rubber roofing system. In most cases, and again, obviously, sometimes things happen, so we can't say bulletproof or always, but in most cases, what we see are at the seams and laps in these roofs, they're stuck down in an adhesive or a glue. So what happens over 20 years of UV exposure is they start to open up, right? Which is what a lot of these pictures are showing. So the roof itself is kind of starting to come loose at the seams. It's not a scare tactic. It's not a bad thing. It's just kind of typical. So it's showing you like this roof is aged. Okay, not that it's failed or failing, but it's showing the signs. Roof 22.
What is that? Was that the roof above the?
So that is the original gym, and I believe what's under there now.
Classrooms.
Classrooms. Okay. East wing.
E-wing. E-wing.
Yeah. Tom and his guys and some other contractors have been fighting issues with these roof drains for quite a while. I'm sure you guys are aware that there's been issues. What we actually found is that on that side of that roof section, which once we go another slide or two, you'll kind of see a colored picture that'll correlate to this. So just kind of bear with me as far as where we're at. That the roof membrane itself had actually started to delaminate from the substrate. So underneath that black rubber roof is insulation, and that black rubber roof is glued to the insulation. What actually happened is it's starting to peel off, okay? And with that, in the corners of these roofs, sort of where you have the little wooden T thing in the middle picture on the top, that roof drain itself actually pulled up out of the drain lead or the pipe that's down in there. So it actually pulled up. When the roof membrane came loose, it pulled the drain with it. So that's sort of a temporary fix that Tom came up with to help hold it down, sort of thing. So they've been fighting the good fight there with these roof drains for quite a while. So that roof itself, when you look at the entire picture, has been, I hate to say the biggest issue, but it's the one they've kind of been fighting some issues at. So that's a roof that we specifically focused on, which we'll talk more about. And then roofs 3 and 7. So these were the two that were on either side of the auditorium. These are some smaller roof sections where, for example, on roof 7, there's actually a tree growing out of it, which unfortunately we don't have that picture here, but we're happy to show you. I'm sure Brian can attest to it. You've seen the tree growing out of the roof. We actually removed it. Oh, you all have? Okay. So yeah, we removed that tree.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's no longer there for you. So yeah, you got
And we didn't get charged for that.
Yeah, you got a little less green. So I don't know. That's probably not a good thing, right? You kill the tree. But yeah, trees shouldn't be on roofs. I know when we were there and initially talked about it, it's like, hey, what are we seeing? I don't want to say neglect, but roofs are important. They're expensive, and they're things that need to have eyes on them every year. A good qualified person knows what they're looking at and things like that. It's kind of what we're seeing. Some stuff where it's like, hey, we let them go for a while, and we obviously weren't having issues, but now we're starting to see some. It's kind of where you're at. That roof, or I'm sorry, those roofs number 3 and 7, you'll see when we get into our kind of diagnostic thing that we did on this roof, are completely saturated. So water's actually in that roof system where you can see that it's wet, and we'll show you what that looks like. So what we did is an infrared moisture survey. On the right, I know it's hard to see. I'll explain it. A day like today where it's nice and sunny, all right, we get a good sun load, we can do infrared. What that looks like is when you look at a flat roof itself, you have to understand sort of first how it's made up. And in all roofs, there's a deck, right? So in this case, and in most cases on the school, it could be something like concrete or metal or wood, which is what's on this building. You have the deck structure. Above that is, in most cases, insulation, and then the roof membrane. Sometimes there's vapor barriers and cover boards and other things in there, but at the bare bones, it's the deck, the insulation, and the membrane, right? So what happens on a good sunny day when you get a good sun load, anywhere where moisture or water is getting inside that roof membrane, that underlying insulation gets wet. And then on a good Sunday, that underlying wet insulation holds the heat of the day, gets really hot, And what we do is we come out right at dusk or dark when the ambient temperature in the roof itself cool off real fast, and we can see like hot spots. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that's what we did. That's what that infrared diagnostic thing is. So this was the findings. So when you look at what we found on the high school, sort of this map of red dots is what we found. There's a couple green ones. What we found in those areas, logistically, it's tough to do because you're climbing up and down and looking down, and we can't always get onto everything, but we do our best. When we came back to do our secondary verification, so actually get down there and see what's going on, in which case we made a lot of repairs to these areas, we found that those two green ones were actually dry. So there was no, it was actually like a build-up material on there that still sort of holds the heat. So what does this tell us? This tells us that A, there was water getting in. Specifically, we marked 28 areas, but it's good news because when you do the math down here on the bottom, okay, 1.4% of the building was wet. So that means 98.6% is dry, is good. Right, so that's a good thing. But this is good information. What this allowed us to do was then come back and investigate these areas further and kind of stop the water from getting in. Tom said it was the hardest day he's worked since he's been here. He was on the roof with me the day after. He walked me all over, and we fixed it as much. I mean, actually more, to be honest with you, because there were some things in some areas like against wall where there's not necessarily insulation. Water may get in and just come into the wall cavity or into the building. That when we were on it and close, we could see, and we fixed that too. But we did fix all of this stuff.
In just about every area, he found a hole or an opening and was able to.
Yeah. But this is the infrared moisture survey. So this is what we actually see on our camera. So it's kind of like that Predator movie, right? How he hunts on the thermal. I know I talked about it, but that's kind of what it looks like. So we see sort of the blues and purples. That's like the cool area. And then the orange and red is the hot spots, right? So what we do, I like this one. I say it's like Sasquatch at night. That's Adam actually down on a lower roof. I was like shooting it from up above and red laser dot, and he was painting it, right? So we mark it, that way we know where it's at, and then we can quantify it, right? We can measure it, then we go back and see what's actually going on there, that sort of stuff. So what we do, we kind of paint the picture with all the information we have at this point. So we know the roof, we know how old it is, we've looked at it, we've sort of got our brains around it a little bit, then we do that diagnostic assessment. We come up with a plan, right? This was the plan. So that key on the left, we have replace immediately, which are those red roofs, okay? Can you go back a slide to actually one more? Wet area number 12 down here, I know it's hard to see, but that's sort of, that would be on the river side of the building. It sort of like bumps out. It's like a bigger canopy area. As you can see, that whole area was wet, right? So in roofing, you don't really have many options at that point. When it's wet, you can't cover it up, right? So it has to come out, right? So that kind of tells us like those roofs down there, those low roofs where a lot of water is getting in, they've seen better days, right? So that's why those are red. Purple roof, even though we have, go one more slide at them. No, the other way, sorry.
Oh, the other way. Sorry.
Yeah.
I got the easy job.
Yeah, it'll help understand. Where that red area is on the side, so it's all mostly purple and red, that's the area where sort of like the drains are and some of that membrane has come loose, right? So that's kind of the picture there. But that roof is probably priority one, realistically.
That's what's flapping in the wind.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The reason I say it's priority one and those red, say replace immediately roofs are not really priority one. Those are exterior sort of canopy walkways. It's not an occupied space. It doesn't necessarily affect anyone. You decided we don't want to do anything with it, so be it, right? Couldn't tell you, it's not really affecting anyone. It is affecting the structure. When you're underneath and look, you have paint and concrete and things like that hanging, and all those drain leaders are rusted and corrosion. It's ugly. It could pose a risk of, of block, brick, something falling off, but it's not like students helping, maybe safety, right, if something were to fall, but it's not like letting water into a classroom, right, where now we have mold and do things like that. So anyway, getting back to it, this is kind of priority number one. for two reasons. One is, even though there's some, when you look at all the roofs, this is kind of like the worst of the important ones, you still have the opportunity to what we call perform a restoration on that roof. So kind of what that restoration process is and what it looks like is sort of painted on the left. I'm sure we already looked at it. But in roofing, you have options. Okay, and what we do, again, we always try to work with you to get you the best option. If you can save the roof that's there, it's going to be most cost effective. Okay, if you have to take that roof off, commercial roofing and building code says now you need to go back with new building code, right? Which is an increase in insulation, which is an increase in money, and then a new membrane, which is more money, and that sort of thing. In this case, that roof sort of right in the sweet spot where you can still save it, which is financially more cost effective, and it still has long-term performance, long-term warranty associated with that roof restoration. So when we looked at this roof being a priority, we would recommend that roof restoration process. What it looks like, I know we have samples, so we'll kind of pass them around, you guys can see. But in that red area where those roof drains are, we would actually cut out and replace those drains. So that roof membrane's loose in that area. We would cut out a 10 by 10 area of the actual black rubber roof. New drains would go in. New rubber roof would get glued down. And then the other areas that were loose would also get glued down. And then we would use something called a batten strip, where essentially you would put aluminum bars across that roof, and you would actually mechanically like screw and fasten into the underlying deck structure to essentially hold it down. Okay, to eliminate that issue for the long term, where it's not going to blow off. Because quite honestly, right now it's sort of in that area where the next 70-mile-an-hour wind, it's not going to get better. I'll tell you that. Is it going to blow off? I don't know. If I knew, they'd have to pay me a lot of money. I don't know that. There's never. Everybody always says, "How long do we actually have?" If I could predict that, I wouldn't be. I don't know. But you're there. You know, you need to give serious consideration. But you cut, relax, re-adhere, do the batten strips, seal everything off. So you put a 6-inch peel and stick essentially over those areas, and then you perform that long-term roof restoration system. Did you grab it?
I have.
So yeah, you can send it around if you want. They can kind of see.
So here's your EPDM roof. This black here, what we do is we go down and we clean it, do a primer, base coat 3 gallons a square, reinforcement fabric. I have a slide of this in the future. And then reinforce everything up the flashing, up the walls, and then top coat. And that's what we did at Wimber, which we did at Westmont. We have 5-year plans with them doing the same thing.
And the War Memorial.
War Memorial, yeah.
Yeah, so right here in town. So that is what's on the War Memorial. You can see it. So that's.
So does that mean the roof will be white?
Yes and no. That's what's on the War Memorial. That's not the only option. There are other options. However, and I'd be happy to do it, we do have an in-house energy engineer where they actually run the numbers, so to speak, on like a black versus a white roof. And you can see where there actually is a financial payback with heating and cooling with the white surface. But yeah, white is not the only option. Yeah. They'll do purple, it costs more, or they'll do blue. Standard colors are white, a light gray, a dark gray, a tan, and a black. Those are kind of like standard. If you want blue, we'll do it. Actually, one of Adam's photos, you'll see it's really cool. We do a lot of hospital work as well. And when we did a coating like that, we actually masked off and used an additional yellow top coat, like safety yellow for walkways and perimeter safety. So you actually kind of put that, catches your eye, it says, whoa, like something's here, right? Like when you see a yellow curb on a step, it's like, okay, that's changing something significant I need to be aware of. We can do that too. So yeah, there's color options. But what that process is, Adam sort of talked about it. Before you can ever do that, you need to get the existing roof up to its highest performing standard. So we wouldn't just do it to the roof like it is. We would do all those things where we would make repairs. Any of those seams that are coming open would get repaired. You basically make it as good as you can before you do that. That's a 30-year warranty. So that roof would get a brand new 30-year warranty with us. Trying to think. With that, you guys want to see it? Like, now we're just listening. But with that 30-year warranty, for us, we consider it a long-term partnership. We're not a one-trick pony. We don't just sell this stuff. It's not what we do. It's something in our toolbox, basically. In your case, it's something you can do just like they did at the War Memorial on roofs 3 and 7, which we'll talk about next. You don't have that option. Okay, so that's a good option for what you got. Basically, is the way to think about it. But with that 30-year warranty, it actually includes long-term coverage by us, but also regular preventative maintenance, housekeeping, that sort of thing. So years 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, we, not you, we come back on our own, walk it, assess it. If there's anything that needs fixed, we fix it. It's all included. Okay, so there's no hidden cost or anything like that there. We own it, right? That's our way to make sure that it gets to 30 years. Because if it fails at 25 and we have a no dollar limit warranty, now we're paying 25 years from now to replace it, right? So we want to make sure it gets there. So Tremco, as a manufacturer, we're the only manufacturer that does that. There's no other commercial roofing manufacturer with that in their warranties. Little different story on 3 and 7. Just forget that for a second because you can't do that anymore. Those roofs are shot. They need to come off. So the recommendation there is actually to remove those roof sections to the underlying back structure and then go back with a new roofing system. However, I talked about building code earlier. Because those are unoccupied, you don't have to meet building code R30 or a minimum of 5 1/4 inches insulation. Because they're outside, you can use less, which is a good thing. It saves money. There's no point to insulate outside, right? We're not saving any money by doing that. So we can go less there. So what we're doing is starting with a 1/4 inch tapered insulation over the existing deck, and then all new 60 mil single ply, which is also here somewhere if you want to see it. Do you have it?
Yeah, it has a fleece back backing and the seams are heat welded for a chemical bond, so we're not relying on the adhesive to fail in 20 years. It's all going to be monolithically welded with a heat gun. And then the fleece back membrane provides additional adhesion, and we are something that drains there as well.
So
That's great.
what's that?
So what do you think, Mom?
Looks great.
That looks
Great, looks good. Yes, there are color options in that one too, very similar to the standard in this. Whites, grays, tans, blacks, things like that. Again, happy to do it. Just let us know. Again, that in-house energy engineer guy. You're not going to save money there because you're heating and cooling outside. It doesn't exist, but on roof 22, you can actually see that. But yeah, that's what we would recommend there. So when we initially kind of sat down and talked about some of the stuff with Les, and Brian sort of went on the roofs with us. He's not a roof guy. He's not a real big fan. Tom did. We sat down and talked, and then we also talked about kind of the rest of the building and then all the other buildings. So my understanding is, and I wasn't on any of the other buildings except this one, so we were not on Garfield, we were not on the middle school, we were not on the elementary. We were just on the high school in this building, as they seem to be the biggest need. Those other buildings' roofs are not that old. For all intents and purposes, 5 to 10 years-ish, sounds about right. But we do offer a preventative maintenance program, which is a very great tool for avoiding these big expensive projects. So we talked a little bit about that, and they asked us, hey, can you kind of give us a big picture of what that would look like if we looked at all of our buildings and that as an option. So we did that as well. It's called our Tremco Preventative Maintenance Program. It includes, so every year, or prior to the program, we would do that infrared diagnostic thing that you saw. We would do that on all the buildings. After that's done, just like we did on the high school, we would come back and fix anything that we found. So we find the wet areas, we stop the water from getting in. Right now, you're more watertight than you've been in a long time. Then this thing would kick in. So our actual technicians, not guys like myself and Adam at the low, these are guys that, you know, that they crawl the roof every day. I mean, I crawl on a lot of roofs, don't get me wrong, but this is what they do every day. I don't, fortunately. But they come out and they essentially crawl every inch of the roof. So they look at it, they assess it, they document it. It all goes in an online platform. They get pictures, they take core cuts to figure out what's there. They do regular maintenance, housekeeping, and preventative maintenance. So they clear any debris, they make sure the drains are clear. If they see a seam or something that's coming open, they actually fix it, they strip it in. So all that's built in, right? They come out and basically once a year, they go over every inch of the roof and make it as good as it can be. The idea is not to make the roof better because you can't really do that, but you stop the roof from getting any worse. Basically, you preserve it for as long as you can, right? That's the idea of this thing. With that, we give options. There's a 1-year option, and then there are 5-year pricing options, which you'll see in a second. Go ahead. So it's sort of broken down, hopefully, so everybody can understand. It's the building, the approximate square footage, the number of roof sections, and then the 1 and the 5-year pricing for each building, and then sort of that bottom line is total, right? So specifically at the high school, that was kind of the first one that we had looked at. You have about 149,000 square foot, 27 roof sections. To do that program that I just talked about, the preventative maintenance thing, for one service for 1 year is $92,700. Tremco also offers a 5-year contract, and my opinion is if you're going to do it, or you have an inkling that says it makes sense to consider that option for 2 reasons. One is it's a discounted price based on the single year. So if you extrapolate the $92,700 times 5, it's like $46,000 and change. I don't know if somebody here is better at math. I had to look it up before. But it's like $46,000. So it basically saves like $1,250 a year, maybe a little more. But the cool thing with that 5-year contract pricing is it still bills annually. So essentially what you do is you get that. Does anybody have a calculator? Want to do the math? 40,000 divided by 5, if you did it, would be the price annually. And that's less than, it's
not
would be 8,000. It saves $1,200. Yeah, I already did the math. I just couldn't reverse it. I did it. I couldn't reverse it. So like on that, if you did the 5-year contract, it's like 8,000, saves $1,200, and then that price is locked in for 5 years. But you can cancel anytime. So that's why it makes sense. Now, if we already did the service for that year, and then you say we didn't like it, we want to cancel, we still have to bill you for that service. But if we do it 1 year and then before year 2 service, you say we don't like it, it's not for us. Okay, all right, cancel. So that makes sense, especially where you guys are at. The high school being out of warranty totally, you don't want to lose it because once you have to start replacing wet insulation and do other things to replace a roof, it gets really expensive. So you want to try to keep those roofs long-term in a state where you have this more cost-effective option to restore those roofs, still get a long-term warranty for, 50, 60% of the cost of replacement, right? So it's more cost-effective to do that. Again, I won't talk through all those numbers, but we did that on all the buildings. Right. The last one real quick was just the administration building because here we are. Les wanted us to take, or Les and Tom wanted us to take a look. That's great. Yeah. Here's what I'll tell you, okay? This thing has a spray foam roof on. If it was good, everybody would do it. I wouldn't be here right now. And you guys probably already know that. This is absolute, I hate to say it, but I will. It's bottom of the barrel as cheap as you can go when it comes to a roofing solution. Okay, if it was good, it would be everywhere. Nobody would be doing anything else because it was actually good. You don't see it much. We don't see it much. And when we do, it's pretty much in this state. When you look at these 2 pictures in the bottom left corner, that's pretty much everywhere on this roof. Okay, so you have holes. You have mold, you have little trees, you have grass, things growing. There's holes everywhere. The only thing that's saving this building from leaking significantly is the fact that underneath this spray foam roof, there's another roof, which is the original gravel built-up roof. So that's kind of like your swimming pool, right, where it's holding the water. All this stuff underneath what used to be white but is now a lot of gray and black is completely saturated. So this roof certainly does not have this option. This roof, long-term, if you wanted to do something, which we talked about, what would that look like? This would all have to come off down to the structural deck. So in this case, it's a wooden deck. You would have to hit R30, which is 2 layers it's 2 layers of 2-inch, which puts you really close, plus tapered insulation. We would recommend replacing all the drains and actually adding some additional drains up there. A new 60 mil, which would be that same 30-year roof, and there's the cost associated with it.
Stuff is notoriously hard to tear off. We've done a lot of them in the past, and it's like taking off wet jersey barriers. So there's a lot of labor in tearing what's up there off.
Would you use a wooden deck again? Or
So here's what we know. We can see up in a lot of places, but not everywhere here. You can get a pretty good feel for what's going on by looking up when it comes to wooden deck. So we didn't get extremely invasive as far as this. We know that the roof's bad, okay? And the idea was if we had to do something with this roof, what would it look like? I said add 2 drains. We don't know where we would put them yet. We would have to figure out where you can put them, okay? Right now, I mean, steel dunnage, there's all sorts of stuff up there. Like above this drop ceiling is really busy, believe it or not. There's a lot of stuff up there. So you may want to say, hey, I'd like to put it right where the A is on roof A there in the middle of the red, and you can't because logistics inside that roof tell you can't, right? It dictates to you. So we didn't go down all that, like how bad is the wooden deck. I'm sure there are some that will need replaced, due to water infiltration and rot.
I guess that's my question.
Yeah,
You just replace the bad, or you might have to replace the whole part.
So you wouldn't have to replace all the wooden deck. No. I'm sure there would be some spot replacement, probably around the drains in the low-lying areas where water gets in and it kind of hangs out. Because again, that the existing spray foam roof is really nothing except a giant sponge up there right now. But yeah, there would be some spot replacement. You would not need to take all the wooden deck off from that. There's a couple other factors here that I'll just make note of. I asked Tom sort of those 2 big white triangles or squares off to that side there in the top middle is a large air handler. My understanding is it's non-functional at this point. That's something that when we look at the roof, for example, there's big steel dunnage there as well. We can't really say firmly that cost that you just saw, the 663 or whatever it is the cost. That 663 would be tearing all this off, getting rid of it, and putting a new roof on. That thing would probably need to go unless you had another thought for it, which I'm guessing you don't. No, I don't want it. Scrap? Maybe. But yeah, so there are some other factors there that would change that. But my understanding is this wasn't like an extreme priority, nor would I say that it is more important to take care of this building than the school at this point. Just kind of point to note on that one. So yeah, just a couple quick pictures and then we'll be done talking. Everybody knows this building, I assume. I've said it a few different times. So what we put on, what we're recommending here on roof 22 at the high school, that same process. So the existing rubber roof, you can kind of see this hazy white, that's the primer. Okay, so it gets cleaned, then it gets primed. You have base coat, which gets a fabric put in it, fully reinforced top coat, creates. I talked earlier about the rubber roof and I showed pictures of like the seams that are opening up and things like that. What this also does is it creates a monolithic finish, so it's completely seamless, right? So there's none of that stuff that can open up anymore. There's those yellow walkways I referenced, so you can do stuff like that. Just talks a little bit about the benefits. So you still get the long-term performance. You don't have to tear off, so that saves you money. Also saves you a lot of headache, especially in a school setting, in commercial roofing, and everybody knows it that's here that's done anything with school projects. The summer window is go, go, go when students aren't in, right? You can get beyond that summer window sometimes with this sort of thing. So it kind of opens that window a little bit because it's not as invasive as tearing off and that sort of thing. So sometimes you can even get a little better price by not trying to cram it into that summer window and things like that. Low odor, low disruption, it's much faster, that sort of stuff. We as Tremco, at no additional cost, we do offer in all of our projects, for example, if we were to do something together on the front end, there are a lot of different options and all the schools that we work with are different. In some cases, folks say, we like the cooperative purchasing route, or we like the traditional bid route, or whatever it is. I mean, we do it all on the front end. We save folks a lot of money by putting together bid documents and specifications. If you choose to go that route with multiple bid procurement, you can also, again, for the sake of a cleaner, easier. I'm not sure how often you guys have used the cooperative purchasing methods. But when we put those numbers together, that was the idea, or maybe the understanding. that would be feasible. And what that actually does, I think all schools at some point or another has been burned by the traditional public bid idea where in roofing, we say 2 guys in a truck show up and you get a bad roof at the end of the day. Through those cooperative purchasing programs, they fully vet the contractors that are part of those programs, whether it be financials, financial history, bankruptcy history, job performance, all those things, where they're actually fully vetted, good commercial roofing outfits. And then you can purchase direct should you want, or should you feel like that's a good option for you. Even through those programs, you can still get multiple bids. So that's another option. But in that, we actually provide all job oversights, or essentially act as a construction manager or we're on site before, during, and after the project, and make sure that it goes down right, because at the end of the day, it's our buy, right? If there's an issue, we're the guys that are coming out that are responsible to fix it because we own it as well. So that's just kind of what that 30-year kind of labor material warranty stuff talks about. This is the key roof, so that's the other thing that we talk about for roofs 3 and 7, and that would be like something that you would look like here, where you would actually tear it off, put back new insulation, put down new roof membrane. Yeah, same thing, just different system. So that's it for us.
Did you put that roof on?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
know
was,
that building.
that was
That's
a great around
that's the
Altoona.
GJCTC.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the PMC Altoona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of it. In a long nutshell, I guess. Thoughts, questions? I'm sure there's some. Additional clarification. Happy to do it.
I guess the only question I know there's a warranty on a new installation of 30 years on the new installation.
Yep.
On anything that's repaired, is there any kind of warranty like that? Or, I know it'd be hard on a roof, I understand.
Yeah. So it's a great question. All roofing that, so we're the last one that will still actually extend a warranty of our own roof. There was one other company that still did it up until about 2 years ago. Now they don't do it anymore. But as with anything, it's business, right? So fully candid, I'm sorry. For us to own that thing, let's say for another 5 years, we would require like some front end diligence and probably some money associated with getting that thing to a place where we feel comfortable actually giving you a warranty, right? The idea is not for Tremco, even though I work for them, to lose money, right? As long as they pay me, I'm okay. But again, it's business, right? So to do a warranty, we would do the scan, we would make repairs, there's wet installations, we would require and things like that. We would not warrant that roof, it's not ours.
Right.
That Tremco program thing that I talked about, that 1 year kind of preventative maintenance thing, the one that we priced is, I already talked about it a bunch, it's the 1 year program where we do the infrared, we service it, we make repairs, we do as much as we can to make sure that you guys are good for the next year. There's sort of a next level option there where it's more money to actually over twice the cost if you just like double those numbers. But actually what that includes is like a leak coverage. So at any time during that 1 or 5 years, if you have a leak, we come out and fix it and there's no cost, right? So you're paying upfront for leak costs. I wouldn't recommend you do it because right now you should be leak free. I mean, we fixed everything that was there. Like you shouldn't have any leaks. If you do, it's because somebody went up there and put a hole in the roof, you know? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we appreciate your time, and certainly if there's any questions, thoughts, anything else we can do, let us know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Sure. This one, so, did you get your, yeah. Sure. Good to see you.
It's not really. Thank you, guys.
That concludes our presentations for this evening, Mr. Pence.
We don't have no hearing of citizens, but but we have to go into an executive session. We're gonna stay here. In the cool. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thank you, guys. You won't need that agenda, folks.
Shut that down. I just have to start back up.
How do I just pause this?
Yes, I will text him. Thank
He's
you.
gonna shut it.
He's just gonna
Pause,
shut it.
gonna shut it down.
He was very excited about his product. Very thorough. Okay, let me get a book.
I thought he kept asking questions.
Hold on a second.
I should have kept asking.
Guys, I was waiting for that. It feels intentional. I feel like you're going to.
I think we should do it.
What's that?
I'm gonna ask Mike to shut the camera off, so we'll hold off on continuing with our executive session.
You just want me to end that?
We get some messages to people here on the meeting.